definitely hired people who were not a good fit for the brand, and they looked so good on paper. They made it through HR interviews. They made it through our interviews. They made it through writing samples and stuff. And then first day, they're just a completely different person.
Right.
Hey guys, welcome to the Sheroic podcast. I am Cassey.
And I'm Lisa.
And today we're talking about what it means to be a girl boss.
Yes, wow. I love that you
Did you like that?
You're like so embodying the girl boss vibe.
I am. Not just a boss, but a boss.
A boss.
You can't even say it because you're so British.
A girl boss.
A girl boss.
But isn't it interesting in just saying it? Don't you kind of feel a little empowered?
I do.
It's kind of cool.
I really, really do.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know you have some stats that you want to share with me, and I don't know what you're going to read.
I
so
do. I'm kind of getting into like this whole stat thing. Like as
Okay.
we come up with subjects, like just looking into like what are like the stats on things. It really helps me grasp it, and I just found these so fascinating and excited like a little kid now.
Okay, let's hear.
All right. So an article was written based on a 2014 Gallup poll, which showed that 39% of females preferred a male boss.
What?
34% didn't have a preference, and only, get this drum roll, 25% of females preferred a female boss.
Wow.
The funny thing is, I don't know if I'm surprised. Like, I'm shocked with the actual numbers, but I actually thought, you know what, something was telling me that even women don't want a female boss.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to that whole competition thing and being super judgmental of one another instead of wanting to lift each other up.
So you think that being, let's say, an employee, if you have a female boss, you're going to be judgmental because you're a female, versus if it was a guy, you kind of just go, he's my boss.
I just feel like sometimes women make things a lot more emotionally driven than they need to be when sometimes it's just about business, which I think men are wired to think that way and not take things so personally. And I catch myself doing this all the time. I'm like, wait, did that person do this to me? And what does it really mean? And then I'll have to talk to Sam and be like, no, like they actually just want this. And so maybe it has something to do with that.
So you're saying Sam can almost see it from an unemotional point of view versus reading into every little like, oh, she rolled her eyes, so that means she hates me.
Yes. Yeah, no, I mean, even I was texting one of my friends and he didn't text me back immediately, and I like went on this entire rage, and I was like, oh my gosh, like it must have been because I didn't do this for him the other week, and and Sam was like, he's probably just out of the country. And then later on, this is like months later, I brought up the situation with my friend, and he's like, oh, I just didn't get your text, I was out of the country. And I was like, oh, that's it. Yeah. And so I don't know, maybe it has something to do with that, where things just get too personal with certain types of female bosses that it becomes so much more than work, and not in a positive way. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's also something to like, I take Tom, my husband. So he's a guy, and he's able to differentiate the emotional with the work thing. So let's say someone's upset with you because like you've pointed out something about their work. I will start to get in my own head like, oh my God, did I approach it right? Are they okay? Did I upset them? I don't want to upset them, but I want them to know that there was an issue there. And now I'm like kind of analyzing that situation. Yeah. For him, he's like, they made a mistake. I'm going to tell them. I'm going to be polite about it. If they've got issues, they have to deal with it. And so I've kind of looked at that, and I'm trying to find that balance because I still do care, and I still like do worry, like, because I've made friends with some of my employees as well. So like that's a weird dynamic.
That definitely is a weird dynamic.
So going off that stat, though, there's another one that's follow-up, which I find really interesting. So if you think that only 25% of women prefer female bosses, this Gallup poll, again, found that employees working under a female boss were 6% more engaged and felt that someone at work supported their development over men. So the women that do have female bosses and like their female bosses, 6% of them are more engaged and they feel loved. So how do you weigh that? Like,
I think we just need better female bosses, right? I think that's what that statistic is telling us. And naturally, you would think that a female boss would understand how a female employee would want to be treated, just because we both go through things like having periods or like having babies, like just those sorts of things, and sexism or whatever. But I don't know, maybe some women feel so entitled that they got to a certain position that they're like, well, now everyone has to prove it. It's almost like not like fraternities or sororities or something, where you have to prove that you're good enough for this or something like that. You know how everyone has to like do their time. Yeah. I'm completely speculating here, by the way.
Right, yeah, for sure.
Because let's see, have I had both female and male bosses? In a corporate environment, I've only had 2 female bosses. And I don't think it was really like a female on female thing. I just think just for me, like, I didn't like my job. So that was a whole completely another thing. Yeah. How about you? Have you had a female boss and a male boss?
I was thinking back. I haven't really had a female boss, to be honest. There was like a supervisor, but whenever there was like an issue, it was more like we'd go to her boss, who was a guy. But I do remember one instance. So I was working at a car dealership. I was the receptionist.
You worked at a car dealership? I did. What kind of cars were you selling?
Volkswagen. So basically we were, Tom and I were about to get married. We'd moved to England for 6 months because I was Greek and I really wanted a big Greek wedding. So we decided we'll have it in London and then we'll move to the States after once we get married. So for 6 months, he couldn't get a visa, so he couldn't work. And I knew it was just a temporary job, so I just needed to earn cash. So I worked at a car dealership. I could then plan the wedding on the side and, kind of take my time. And there was a girl working there who actually used to go to my high school. Oh. And she was really, really mean in high school, like really mean. She was like the bully of the high school. Was she like really hot or was she just mean? She was almost a bit like of a boyish mean.
Got it. Okay.
And so like if you ever like looked at her boyfriend wrong, she threatened to beat you up.
Oh,
she was mean.
Oh, that's dangerous.
Right.
Yeah.
But now look, that was in high school.
Yeah.
This is, 5-10 years later, however long, like later, I'm working in this car dealership. She's working there. Now, the girl sitting next to me in reception, I'm telling her, oh, that girl used to go to my high school. She used to be a really big bully.
Okay.
Now, she hears about that I've told somebody. So she goes to our supervisor and she's like, Lisa's spreading rumors.
Oh, my gosh.
And it was so not true. Like, I was actually still a little scared of her. So I was kind of like telling my coworker as a like, is she nice or is she mean? Because I didn't know what to expect. Oh. But in asking the question, it came across like I was gossiping. Right. She went and told her, like, did you hear Lisa's telling everyone? And it's like, I really was. Anyway.
Oh my gosh.
So she goes to the supervisor. So now the supervisor calls me in. And I'm sitting there with this girl that used to be a bully. Apparently she's really nice now, but I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And there's a female boss and she was kind of a little speechless. Like she was kind of like, she didn't really know how to handle the situation. She was like, well, I could tell you're really upset. And I got really upset. She's like, Lisa, I could tell you're really upset. And so it was just like a whole emotional chat. But then her boss comes in, who's a guy, and is like, all right, what's the problem? It's like, well, this is happening. He's like, okay, well, this is what you do. You don't talk to her. She don't talk to her. Or get along. Either way, like, make it work. And he kind of just walked out. And I was like, yes. Like, I actually appreciated that because I don't want to go through this whole, like, heart to heart. Yeah. Like, I didn't mean anything by it. I'd said it to her face. Like, look, I didn't mean anything by it. I had just remembered you to be a certain way. Yeah. And so I didn't know what to expect. Anyway, so that was like...
That is so interesting.
So as the female supervisor, she was like, oh, well, how do you feel? And how do you feel? But the guy just came in and was like, this can't affect my business.
Yeah.
And I kind of really appreciated it from that standpoint.
I like that. I do like that. I think there are times when you need to take emotions into consideration, but there are times when it kind of just doesn't matter. Like, let's just get over this. And I know, like, someone like my mom, she holds on to grudges for so long and it ends up negatively affecting her for the rest of her life because she just can't let go. And if you're willing to just get over it, then your life can be so much happier. So I think there are times when you just need to, like, just move on.
Yeah. Well, so because one thing we really want to talk about is the lessons that we've learned as being an employee. So like this case for me, like what have I then learned to take that into being, a boss in essence. What do you feel like? Are there any lessons that you learned as being an employee, or did you do things as an employee where you're like, you know what, when I get people that are acting like me, I'm going to do this because I don't feel like I'm getting enough credit? Or is there anything like that you
For me, it wasn't ever about credit. It was just about someone allowing me to be creative and letting me follow through with a project. So at my job where I was trying to become a fashion buyer, I really wanted to be a buyer really bad. And maybe I was like, I don't know, 4 months in or something like that. And what buyers do is they find new product. They see what's going to sell really hot, and they, present it to the team. And then, they buy some units and see if it sells. Like, that's what they do. And so I thought, well, why don't I just go online and find some new vendors and have them ship me some stuff, and then I'll share it with my team, see if they like it. And if they do, then I'll bring it to the buyer, and then it wasn't about me having credit. It was giving it to the buyer so that our activewear department would do well as a whole. Like, that was my thing. I wasn't trying to step on anyone's toes, to make anyone look bad. When you think about it from the bigger perspective, like, say if the CEO of the company saw that, they would see value in that. But when you get down to management level, they start seeing, well, hold on, you were hired to do the analysis part of the buying. You don't do the buying. So basically, why did you reach out to the vendor? This is not your job. Do what you're paid to do, is what I was told. And so stuff like that really makes you feel small. It makes you feel stupid. It makes you feel like, I don't think people are appreciating what I'm doing, and maybe I'm actually doing something wrong. And, I was young, so I started doubting everything that I did. And so that's one thing for sure that I never, ever want to do to any of my employees or even my children. If someone is trying to do good for the whole, let them, and don't let your ego stand in the way, because who knows, maybe I would be there and be a top buyer at that company, but no, instead I'm running my own business, so whatever.
I was going to say, all those Blogilates fans out there are thanking that person for saying that to you so that you went on to do what you do.
And so that was a female boss, by the way.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. So do you think that she felt like you stepped on her toes?
Maybe. I mean, I'm not in her head. I can't say. But I think in a big corporate environment, everyone wants to get credit for what they're doing. And if one of your, soldiers are out of line, then it looks like you're not doing your job. And so maybe she didn't want me to be offending, the other buyers or something. I don't know. Yeah. Either way, I don't think it was the right thing to do. I think she should have embraced that. And then let's just show the buyer. Like, I didn't even get a chance to show the buyers products that I found. Yeah.
I mean, so going back to the credit thing, I do struggle with this a little, because here's the honest truth. I think everybody wants to feel valued. So even if it's not a direct pat on the back, like, you, Cassey Ho, Lisa Bilyeu, pat on the back, they want to feel value. Like, even with this podcast, I want to feel like we're bringing value. And if people weren't like, oh my God, you guys are great, and all we got is criticism, and we try to adjust and okay, let's listen to the fans, and we kept trying to adjust and we still weren't bringing value, at some point we would change direction or stop doing it. Yeah. Because I think getting that feedback, getting that positive feedback that, okay, you're bringing value to the team, and you're bringing value to the product, or you're bringing value to the company. I think that's really important. But how do you think you do that without then isolating everybody else?
Well, I think when someone's doing a good job, we shouldn't be ashamed of celebrating that. We literally just talked about this over lunch. And so, first of all, I think talking to the person individually, so you can really say what you need to say and let them know how much you appreciate that. And I just talked about this on another episode where I actually was crying because I was just so happy for this person and what they've contributed to the company. And then, as a team and as a whole, I think the fact that that person put their heart and their guts and their soul into a project, people can see that. Of course, I'm always going to say, thank you so much. You do a great job. I do that all the time. And I only do it when I mean it. And when people see that, I think see that and hear that, it makes them feel good and knows that when they do something cool, they're going to get recognized for it too. But it's not really just working for that recognition. It's working for the greater vision of the entire team. And it's not just your name. It's seeing how what you did has impacted the customers or the audience or whatever. Like it's like you can see when it was something good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I'm actually currently reading a book called Captivate.
Okay.
And Vanessa Van Edwards, an incredible woman. Definitely want to get her on this show. She's so good.
Okay.
She talks about like the language, right? The language that certain people use. So, for instance, like for me, if you think that I've done a good job, like a vocal language, or texting me like, oh my God, you're so like, thank you so much for doing this. Finding your appreciation, right?
Yeah.
What's your appreciation language? For me, it's either by saying it to me or texting me.
Okay.
Buying me big gifts, I don't care, like things like that where it's, but other people may not want the thank you, you're doing such a good job. Other people may want it in as a pay rise or a gift or an announcement to the team. Like, everybody, look at what this person did. Look how good they are. But it's their way of appreciating. And we're kind of trying to do this at Impact Theory now, is we're going to actually have a team meeting and sit around and go around the table and talk about their language of appreciation and their language and their methods.
Oh, so is everyone reading the book then?
Yeah, so we've literally got everybody reading the book, and we're going to have this big team meeting.
Okay.
She goes through like a bunch of, she calls it Ocean, Ocean, and I've got a terrible memory and I don't have the notes in front of me to explain what all those are. But understanding how that person perceives things is so important, because what you do for one employer, and I'm sure I've heard many people say this about kids, right? Like, I did this with my kid and like they're amazing at this, and I did this with the other kid and now they think that I'm being mean. It's like, how do you deal with each individual character?
Yeah.
And so I think knowing what people's languages are is very important, because if you want someone to feel appreciated and you're saying and you're like, I don't understand, why are they don't feel appreciated.
It's kind of the same thing as the book, The 5 Love Languages.
Yeah, exactly.
Same thing. Yeah.
Where you know, your partner wants to know like, what is their language to feel loved.
Right. And for some people it's through action. For some people it's a hug. And you know, like, I think I talked about this before, but like for my dad, he doesn't really like to say I love you, but he'll like wash my car and he'll let me know, and you know, through that. And you just have to know when they're expressing so that you can accept the gift that they're giving you.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's, I think, why it's so important to know that about your team. Because if you're so appreciative, like if there's someone in my team who's just killing it and doing an amazing job, I want them to hear it. But I need to know what language they're speaking so that I can get that across to them.
Yeah. So
I think that's super important.
I agree. I think sometimes I do all of it just in case, because if you feel so thankful, you let them know, you write them an email, you get them a gift, you give them a raise, you know, like, hey, if you're killing it, here you go.
Get everything. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So do you have like one experience like as becoming, in fact, a boss for the first time? What did that feel like for you? Do you have an experience that you can share?
Yeah, being a boss for the first time. So I've always been the type of person who does everything by myself, because I have a vision. I know exactly what it wants to look like. And because I know how to do graphic design and things like that, I can visualize and then create. And so one of the hardest things for me to let go of was, for example, video editing. So I used to edit all of my videos, all the workouts, all the cheap clean eats, like everything. And video editing is an extremely, an extremely, what's the word
tedious?
For it? Tedious and time-consuming project, especially if you want it to be super perfect. And I'm not even like a great editor. I just know how to edit my style, my way. Anyway, that was something that I was really afraid to delegate, because you come up with your own style over the years and you're just like, well, will this person even know, like, at this mark they need to cut like it at this angle and all this kind of stuff. And so you just learn to let go, let someone take it, and then you just train from there. I think the really important thing to remember about being a boss is that whoever you're going to hire, they may not be perfect, but they're going to add a new element to your team. You're going to have to train them to see your way, but also you have to let them thrive and do what they're good at. So real quick example, we were working on the Fit Planner 2018, which is one of our hottest selling products on popflexactive.com. It's a workout booklet that allows you to write in what you're eating every day, your to-do list, how much water you're drinking, all that kind of stuff, like tracking everything. And so one of our new graphic designers, we had been halfway working on this in a certain style that I wasn't 100% happy with, but it looked cute and feminine. And then one of our new graphic designers stepped in vision. And I tried to have her continue along with that more soft pastel style. And I noticed right within the first day that the style wasn't really working. And I noticed that this wasn't her style, but I knew she was an incredible, and is an incredible graphic designer. So I said, all right, I'm willing to like take a completely different direction with this product because I want to see what she can do. And the moment that I allowed her to do her design, it was some of the most beautiful stuff I've ever seen. So I was like, you know what? Continue with that artwork. Cool. We're going to scrap what we've done and go with what you're good at. And I am completely happy with it. I'm so excited for everyone to see this. We're probably going to release it in like November or something like that, the 2018 Fit Planner. But it's beautiful. And it's one of those examples where you got to let go and see what someone can do and let them shine. So that goes back to my previous job. What if someone had let me just do that? It could have been so much better. And like, here's the thing, like, I'm not going to always have the best ideas, but I'm also very willing to know when someone has a better idea, and I'm willing to go along with that because I don't want to have ego and pride on holding on to whatever. If someone's good at what they do, let them shine.
Do you find that is difficult being in the creative space because a lot of it is kind of like subject to opinion?
Yes, it is subject to opinion, but in my opinion, I think I have a really good eye, and I can see when something is going to sell well and when something's not going to sell well. And our graphic designer also has a very good eye. What I notice is that when you hire someone in the art area, both of you need to be on the same page when it comes to how things need to look and what looks good.
As for the brand.
For the brand,
right.
And also when we're designing, so there's less edits that we have to do. So before I would have to be like, oh no, like you got to move this to the right or move this to the left, or can you change the Pantone color of this font and like that kind of stuff. But now because our visions are so in line, I feel like it's more of a fluid conversation versus like a tugging and pulling type situation. So for art, I think it is very interesting that the creativity has to be in line.
Yeah. And I've found that somewhat hard at the beginning, but I'm kind of like with you. Once you're able to step back and let's see what a creative person can do, like they can be so incredibly surprising with how beautiful what they deliver. But then I find like if something isn't fitting with your brand, right? Because that's important. It's making sure that even if you love the art, that it has to still be fitting with the brand. If it's not fitting with the brand, I've learned over time that it is the language you speak that really makes a difference. So like if you're like, this is wrong, like it's not fitting with the brand, like this is why, like as artists and creative, I think that can shut them down.
Oh, 100%. So we used to work with an editor who got really offended every time we were like, I don't like this cut. Could you change it? And this person would kind of like close up and like be like, okay, fine. And like just do it. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, first of all, this is my video. I'm paying you to do it. And this is what I see. So like, if your idea actually was better, I'm totally open to keeping it. But the truth is it's not really. So we need to change it. And the person needs to not have that ego to understand, you know what Cassie's telling me probably is better, either for the vision or for the brand or something. So I need to go along with that. But, you know, if that person strongly believes that what I'm doing is really bad, then, you know, we need to talk about that. But if you're just going to have an attitude, then, you know, that's no good. But yeah, I agree. For creatives, when someone really loves their idea and somebody tells them that it's not a great idea, it can really shut someone down, like hard.
And I think from the creative standpoint of the employee, because a lot of people that listen to this don't necessarily either want to be a boss or whatever. Like I think it's also important to show the other side that as a creative, exactly what you just said, like look at it. If your boss is saying this to you, right, like this isn't working, maybe you disagree, and maybe that's a stylistic standpoint, right? Like I love vlog style editing and you love fades, right? Like whatever it may be. But embracing that, okay, they like with you've been doing this for a long time, so clearly what you're doing is working for your audience. So from the employment standpoint, I would look at it and go, okay, I don't actually naturally incline and agree with her, but clearly what she's doing is working for her fan base. this is an opportunity for me to grow. This is an opportunity for me to learn, because like if I'm going to be here, it's not just about the paycheck, it's about growing and learning and learning from someone that's good at it, because you've made a career out of it. So bring down those ego walls and say, what can I learn that I'm not seeing right now? Right? And then from, if it's an editor, go, okay, she likes the cuts like this. Why is that? Why does that work over this? And then, like you said, have the discussion if you still don't agree, but use it as an opportunity to really empower yourself. Like, don't use it like, well, now I'm just a pair of hands and forget it. Be like, wow, I can really learn from this.
Right. But there are definitely times when designers do feel like they are a pair of hands. And this is this podcast is so timely because we're actually interviewing for our second position for graphic designer at Blogilates. And one of the questions that we asked during the interview, I guess if anyone ever interviews, they'll know, is what frustrated you the most at your previous employment?
Oh, nice.
And so a lot of the time the creatives will say, when I had to work on something that I wasn't passionate about and I saw a different vision, but my boss or whoever the client was had a very strict vision of what they wanted it to look like, and I just had to deliver that, and that was some of my worst work. And so sometimes there are situations where your higher up will want you to do something. It's not going to look good, but because they are giving you the paycheck, you have to listen. But I think in those moments, if your creative visions aren't aligning, then that's somewhere where you need to find another job or you need to go somewhere else. Because I think for creatives, the ability to express freely is something that's so valuable. Yeah.
And I think as a boss, it could be interesting to say to people, and this is what we try to do at Impact Theory, is like, okay, I hear you. Like, you clearly have a creative vision that I'm not seeing right now that may not be fitting with the brand. For this specific piece of content or this specific thing, we need it to look like this. But hey, here's an idea. Why don't you take a subject or something that it could be a side project and prove it? Because I love to be wrong if the result is going to be more beautiful than I could ever have done or envisioned. So prove me wrong by all means. We just can't risk it on certain things that are going out tomorrow or certain things that, but let's experiment. Let's try it. Show me 10 different designs that you would think that I would never go for, but convince me. Now it keeps the creative juices going. And I think that from an employee standpoint, that could be empowering for you as well. Like, if your boss isn't seeing your vision, go, okay, well then I haven't done a good job persuading them. Like, own that, right? Because I think the second you keep saying my boss doesn't listen, no, that like now you're almost giving away that power to them to then control your creativity. But if you can own it and say, all right, it's my job in my spare time. If you really care about it, you can't do it on work time. In my spare time, I'm going to create something that makes complete sense. And I'm going to show them that this is the way to go.
And sometimes when you show them, this is your version, this is my version, maybe your boss will choose your version. And then there we go. Now you have the credibility and the validity that your creativity can shine. And so, I think it has to be a very open conversation, non-egotistical conversation between the artist and the boss, or just anyone, the employee and the boss. Both sides need to know that I'm just trying to create the best thing out here. I'm not trying to get my name in front of yours or whatever. Like, when ego comes into play, like, good stuff never comes out of that. No.
It's true. So if you are an employee that then tries to approach their boss and they're just not interested, they don't want to listen, what advice would you give them?
Well, I mean, in my situation where I had a boss who didn't want to listen and let me do that sort of thing, I just ended up leaving. And I think that's how you end up losing good people. Because, there are times when you need employees to stay in their box, maybe they're happy and content in their box, and that's good. But when you see someone that's just a little bit different, like, how can you work with that type of person? I think a smart boss would learn how to see what made me different or maybe not good for that role and put me in a different position that would better the company. But I think you have to be visionary to be able to see that. So
whenever I hire anyone, and I don't look at resumes.
You don't?
I don't ever look at resumes.
What?
I have other people look at resumes and they say you need to meet this person. But I don't want any preconceived notion of what that person is or who they are. Like, because if you come in, you say, oh, I went to Harvard and I studied this, and I may think slightly differently of you versus someone who's not college educated. Now, I shouldn't, right? It just means like that's where they've been. But it tells me where they've been. It doesn't tell me where they're going. So I actually don't like to know anything about the person. And then we spoke about the other day when we were at dinner, when we were talking about thin slicing people. So thin slicing is like, let's say you've got a piece of food and you take a very thin slice of it. It's hard to judge whether you're actually going to like the whole thing, because sometimes like a taste kind of like, oh, I actually like that tanginess that in the first taste I didn't like. But in that thin slice, right? Let's say you've got 10 seconds to sum someone up. It's hard.
Oh my gosh. And so I always ask Lisa, like when I have hiring issues or firing issues or whatever, like you are my go-to guru for that. Anyway, but so true on the interview part. You are literally on a blind date with a person for like 40 minutes or something, and then you're supposed to offer them full-time employment, and and what happens if you don't like them or something? You have to then divorce them after that. Like it's such a crazy thing that interviews it's hard. It's really hard. And yes, we've definitely hired people who were not a good fit for the brand, and they looked so good on paper. They made it through HR interviews. They made it through our interviews. They made it through writing samples and stuff. And then first day, they're just a completely different person. Right. Sometimes you get people who are great interviewers, and that's kind of it. Yeah. And then sometimes you get people who are so timid, and then once you get to know them in the work environment, they shine. So you never know what you're going to get. Yeah. I wish there was a better way to do this.
But that's actually why I don't read resumes, because I feel like I'm understanding someone and they actually may not be like that. So I kind of just want to meet someone for the first time, have a talk with them. And I totally agree, it's still very difficult. But at least I don't have all this past history that is now making up a make-believe person in my head. And so when they come in, the main question I always ask the person is, if you had $100 million, what would your everyday look like? And the reason why I ask this question is I think it shows an insight to that person. So I always then caveat, like, okay, you buy your family a house and you pay off your debt and you go on vacation. Like that's always the first answers you get. It's like, okay, you've done all that. Now you're down to 80 million. Right? You spend 20. Yeah. But now you're down to 80. What do your days look like? And it's so telling on what people are like.
Okay, so what have been some of the most surprising answers you've gotten?
Surprising. God, I can't really think of anything off the top of my head, but I normally get the answers like, I would work for charity. Okay, well, what charity would you work for? Because again, now it's telling of what's actually meaningful to them. Right. You get people like, I'll travel the world for years and years and years. Okay, it means that they don't have a very clear vision or a goal. Because when they come to work for you, I want to know who they are, what their fundamental vision is, and what is their selfish desires. Because if you're coming in, you're like, I want to be an entrepreneur. Great. You can come into this business, you can come into Impact Theory and learn everything there is about being an entrepreneur. Now I have something more than just money to offer you. And I think that's very powerful in saying, like, because just for a paycheck isn't going to keep someone motivated.
It's not. And I think that's something that I'm learning too, when it comes to creating job offers, when to give bonuses, when to give raises. I mean, all of this is stuff that I don't even really want to deal with, but it at the end of the day, like, it slightly raises the morale of the person, but not really. There has to be something more than just the paycheck in order for the work to be excellent and for them to be 100% immersed in your culture and in the company. Yeah.
Have you found that in any situation where you're like, oh, this is actually meaningful to this person, and kind of done anything?
What I have found is that when anyone has straight up just like asked for a raise, it's bothered me when they can't prove why they deserve it. And for me, it's like, if you want to get paid more for something, then show me what extra value you can bring to this company, right? Because you're getting paid to do your job at the end of the day. That's kind of like the exchange, right? But if you want more, show me that you've done something crazy and that you deserve that, versus going in and being like, well, so-and-so makes this much and da-da-da-da-da, and this is why I should have it. Like, it doesn't work like that. And I think for anyone out there who wants to get a promotion or wants to get a raise and you have no idea why, then show your boss or show the company what added value you are bringing to the company. It's as easy as that, or it's as difficult as that. But I don't think it's hard to understand that. And if you are delusional and you think you deserve a raise, but you can't show your boss why you deserve it, then there's a little bit of like, and it's not, you got to clear it up in your head.
Do you think that delusion comes from low self-esteem?
I think it comes from entitlement. Yeah, I think it comes from entitlement. And I just think people shouldn't go out and think they deserve anything. I think they should work for things. Yeah.
That's actually interesting. So what would you say if someone's like, I feel undervalued by my boss, or like it's time, like I've been working hard, I really deserve a pay rise. Like how do they act? Like what steps would you advise them to do to actually get what they want?
So I think a good boss would know when somebody deserves a raise, right? Like you value your employee, you give them a raise or a bonus or something like that. But anyway, if you need to convince your boss that you need a raise, then I would say have a really open conversation, write down everything that you've done. You know, it's always good to have things written down so it's not just talking in the air and stuff like that. And if they're not willing to at that point, then maybe come up with an action plan together. Like, hey, if I can, and I actually got this from you, Lisa, if I am able to do these 6 projects in the next 6 months, then I want to be here and I want to have this title. And as a boss, if someone can prove themselves and put together a plan like that, like, yeah, you deserve that. Yeah. But don't go into my office asking for something and not being able to prove why you deserve that, because that makes me really frustrated.
Yeah, I think I even told you that story about that one person that came in that asked me for a pay rise, and I was like, oh, okay, so explain to me what you feel like you're doing that deserves this pay rise. And they're like, well, I always deliver my work on time. And literally, I was like, okay, that's your job? Like, you should be delivering things on time.
Yeah.
So having a clear idea, right, of like what value you're bringing and then what you're doing above your position that warrants that.
Yes.
And being confident in it and really think about it. Or like, I think that looking at that next position, if it's a higher up position from where you are within the same, realm, what are the skill sets that person in that position needs? And then go to your boss and say, this is a position I'm looking for. These are the skill sets that I think I need to acquire. I think it's going to take me about 3 months, but I would love to really work to get there. Will you help me? Because I think that that's actually a really nice way of doing it, like getting your boss engaged in your growth. And then also, do you agree that if I hit this point in 3 months, that I will then be able to get a title raise and a pay rise? And I think making sure that you are bringing value and that you don't feel entitled is so important from the employee. Like, feel empowered, right? I don't want to be given anything that isn't warranted. Like, I really don't. I want to know, like, I worked for that. Like, I find that pride in that. And I think that if people can dig down and find the pride in what they do and then the pride in the growth, it could be really empowering. I think people notice.
Yeah. One of the things we do at Blogilates is we offer a scholarship a year to go to any conference you want to better your craft. And I'm willing to invest in my employees if they want to learn more. I'm all about learning. You should be getting better at your job. And maybe you won't learn everything you need to within our walls, but I want you to explore and go out and do that. And so if somebody wants a raise or they want to get promoted, they know they don't have that education, then go outside of what you have here, find that and bring it back. Now that's valuable to me, being a go-getter like that. I love that kind of stuff.
I know, yeah. And I think finding the right environment where people embrace that. Because I do know that I totally understand there are other corporations out there that no matter how much you try, they don't want to hear or be a part of it. And that's obviously, like who you said before, is like finding your right place.
Yeah.
Because it just may not be a good fit.
100% agree. And that relationship, everything is relationships.
Yeah.
Everything.
It's true.
Business is relationships. Relationships are relationships. But everything at the end of the day is run by people.
Yeah.
And so if we could just learn how to empower one another instead of putting our egos in the way, then we can get so many cool things done.
Yeah.
And that's the point of life, to get cool things done and have fun.
Exactly.
Because then we're going to just die. And that's it. So let's just have
That was
fun.
morbid.
That was morbid.
I actually heard a quote. I think it's Steve Martin. It says, "Be so good they can't ignore you."
I've heard that one.
I love that. Like,
Yeah.
be so good they can't ignore you. Like, if you are just bringing so much value to the company, so much value, they won't let you go. And if they do, then shame on them.
Yep.
But if you are so good and you know what you bring to the table, I don't think you should lower the value that you're bringing, right? That's not what we're saying here. It's, I know what I'm bringing to the table. I'm busting my ass. This is why I think I deserve a promotion. Like, do a presentation.
Yes.
This is what I'm bringing to the table.
Yep.
And be so good that they can't go, okay, well, you know, we're not willing to do it. Goodbye. Because when you are able to take control and take control of your future and your destiny and where your path is leading, like, then you just know, okay, they don't see it, but I know I'm bringing this much value, and you will find a place that gets that.
Yeah. 100% agree. 100% agree. And your actions speak so much louder than words. I mean, I feel like we're just talking in quotes now, but stop saying I deserve it and I need this. Like, just show me and you will get what you want.
Yeah.
That's it.
I had one of my other jobs, my very, very first job that I ever had was working at Burger King.
What?
I was 16.
Wait, so you've worked at a car dealership and Burger King. That's so interesting.
I was 16 and
Okay.
it was the summer holidays and my best friend worked there and I got my boyfriend a job then. And so it was so much fun. It was like, Friday nights we would like work at Burger King and we would hang out.
That
and our
actually
friends
does
would
sound
come
kind of
in.
fun. Were all the cool kids at Burger King?
Well, here's the thing, because I wasn't the cool kid, all the cool kids would come in and I would like try and like give them extra fries so that I felt like I was a cool kid. Like, they'll like me, right, if I give them more fries.
Did they like you kind of?
I don't know.
Okay.
But so working at Burger King, and we had something called the secret shopper, which they do this in a lot of stores where someone actually works for the company.
I've always wanted to be a secret shopper.
Have you really?
I used to, like when I was 14, I would go like online and try to figure out how I could become a secret
That's
shopper.
awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, if anyone out there's listening that can get Cassey a job as a key, that should be a show. Like hide the camera and have you a secret shopper.
With my sunglasses
that would
and
be
baseball
so
cap.
funny. So we had these secret shoppers that would come in and they would rate each Burger King in its area, right?
Okay.
And the person that was responsible for that Burger King was the manager. So we had these bonuses of £20. And so if a secret shopper came in and you did all the things right and you got 100%, you would get £20 bonus from your manager as an enticement. Now, I'm a little OCD with certain things. So every time a customer came in, I said everything I should say. I asked them, would they like ketchup? And yes, that's 5 cents. And like literally, would you like to, go big on your order? And that means extra fries. Like, I made sure I followed the script to the T.
Okay.
I always made sure that the trays were cleared. It's a secret shopper comes in. Our store had never got 100%. 2 days later, I hear, Lisa, you got the secret shopper. You got 100%. Here's £20. Now, £20 as a young kid is a lot of money. That's an equivalent of, let's say, $35 here.
Yeah, that's good.
And this is back, not to show my age, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So that was
that's a lot.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
It's probably, $50 now?
That's a lot of money.
For a 16-year-old. So I was so proud. So after that, about a month later, secret shopper comes in. Someone else got it and they got something like 85%. So my boss was like, what the hell? Like, we need to bring the level up. To cut a long story short, secret shopper comes in another 2 times. I get them another 2 times and I get 100% another 2 times.
Okay.
So my boss gives me the first time £20, the second time £20. By the third time, he said, I'm not giving you your money anymore because he didn't want to pay the £20.
What? That's weird. So
you can imagine, do you think that's going to incentivize me as an employee, or do you think that's going to make me be like,
why should I
bust my butt to bring value to the company when I'm not being recognized? And now, of course, it's my personality. I can't half-ass anything. So I still, it's not like my presentation went down. I mean, I was still me. But I remember that so clearly because I thought, even then at 16, I thought, this is a terrible technique. Like, isn't your goal to make sure that this department, this one Burger King in Palmer's Green, is going to be known as the one that always gets 100%? Like, doesn't that reflect well on you as a manager?
No, Burger King, is it franchise
It's
owned?
franchise, yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I find is the problem too, because then the franchise owner isn't the owner of the entire brand, and so they see
Right.
things differently, just like that bottom line.
But still
Yeah.
being like number one in your
Oh yeah,
borough,
for sure.
your
Oh, for
district,
sure.
like makes you look good.
They're short-sighted. That's what I see. They're
short-sighted,
super
yeah.
short-sighted. They're just looking at how do I save money, and they're not thinking about morale of the employees and not looking at to keep you. Maybe even thinking, oh well, she's just a high school worker. She's gonna leave anyway, and whatever.
is
maybe
true, but
yeah, which
still.
is true. But still, while she's here, or what if you didn't leave? What if you became the supervisor or
Right,
whatever like
yeah.
that? Yeah, no, that's just the wrong thing to do. Period. It's the
Yeah.
wrong thing to do.
So I think morale is just a big thing. So if people are at a job where the morale is just down and no one's like going back to kind of the value thing, right? I think it's really
Yeah.
important to recognize value in each other, whether you're an employee, and even like recognize the value in your boss. Let me tell you, as
Yeah.
an employee, that will take you a long way. Like appreciate the person higher up with you. Like
And not like kiss up to them, but like
No, for
actually
sure.
appreciate them and create a relationship, and don't be scared of them. And hopefully it's a healthy relationship and you don't have to be scared of them. But for us, our door is always open. It's all, if you have a problem, hey, let's talk about it. And that's how you get through stuff. And I don't like gossip. I don't like people making up stories in their heads. Like, no, if you got a problem, we deal with it. And also, I know something really good that you do, Lisa, is like you always like put on parties or like get-togethers to celebrate your employees. I know at Quest, you guys used to do this huge employee carnival for
Yeah.
the employees and their families and their kids and everything.
Yeah.
You did that to help the morale of the company, I'm guessing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And because it's so important, and you know, like it doesn't matter how many people you
Mm-hmm.
have, right? But like if you've got a cleaner, like the value that they bring, like I actually made friends with our cleaner at work
Mm-hmm.
at Quest, because like he was so sweet and he was always like on his game. And so like,
Nice.
and I'm quite fussy. Like I like my clean mugs. And so
Yeah, yeah.
it's like if I'm going to be fussy and asked to have clean mugs and they're always deliver clean mugs, I'm going to make sure that they know that, you know,
Yes.
that I appreciate it and that I go over the top, and, you know, I hug them. And look, I'm not the perfect boss at all. I've fell many times along the way, and I think it's important to recognize that it's okay to fail. Like I didn't know what it was like to be a boss. Same with you, right?
No,
Like,
you just learn, and it's extremely difficult, but you learn. Yeah, but in terms of like hugging your cleaner and being nice, you got to be nice to every single person that you meet, not just because you never know who they're going to be, but just because they're human beings and they're a part of your ecosystem. We're all helping each other to run our daily lives, and being a good person at the end of the day is kind of the goal.
yeah.
To help one another. And just
You
don't be
know,
mean.
actually a technique that I've recently started doing, and it's actually helped me, is putting myself in other people's shoes. Like, what would it be like if I was their boss? If I was my own boss? Like, okay, what are the things do I do that I think are fine that actually would bother me if I was my own employee?
So you know how we started this episode with women overthinking how people feel, and then men just being like, just do it. Do you think guys do that too? Or male bosses?
Do
or
they
maybe,
overthink?
No,
or-
do they put themselves in employee
Oh.
shoes and see how they would feel? Maybe good ones do.
I was going to say, I think
Yeah.
good ones, because
Yeah.
Jared, who you know, works at Impact Theory, like he's an incredible manager. Incredible manager. Now I think I've been doing a lot longer than him, but I look to him and I'm like, this guy is like great.
Yeah.
Like he sits with each person, he makes each time for every single person. Everyone feels wanted, everyone feels heard. And I'm like, I'm always running around like, oh my God, I just don't have time.
Yeah.
And it's not that I don't care. But then I look and go, okay, from the outside, I look at him and I was like, I can see he's a great manager because he shows he cares. And so I think it's really like important to not necessarily even focus on like, it's hard not to focus on male and female, but ultimately I think it's about traits that people can have.
Yeah.
And I think that traits as women, you even said, right, like women have their periods. So like as a female boss, you need to recognize that sometimes you may be in the time of the month where you are more agitated. So if you're a boss and you are feeling that, I think we have to address it, whereas guys don't.
Yeah. That's true.
Right.
That's
And
true.
then if we address it, then at least we can like act accordingly. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
I think everyone should put themselves in someone else's shoes.
Yeah.
And we always have to think about the other person's backstory to see where they're coming from. I think it just becomes a problem when you just start making up stories in your head,
Right.
which sometimes I do. And then it gets too personal and too emotional. So
I think it's key though. Like you've said very often that Sam is your kind of go-to conscience.
He is, because he views things firstly from a male perspective, but also he's not so into this that, he's just looking at it very objectively. And I think that's very helpful to talk it out with somebody. And that's why I always text you, Lisa, when I'm having issues and I'm not with the work environment especially, and I'm not sure how to navigate because you've been through that at a huge corporation. And it's always so mind-blowing, the things that you tell me, that I'm sure you had to work to get to that solution as well. But it's nice to have you as a role model.
Thank you. I mean, what's so impressive is you're so open to it. Like,
how can I not be? Like,
but you say that, but some people aren't.
That's
right?
true.
Like,
that's true. Because it's ego.
Yeah.
They don't want to be open to it.
You turn, like, whether you're an employer or a boss and you've got an issue, you turn to the people they're gonna tell me I'm great. Whereas I don't ever do that with you, right? I'm always just honest, and sometimes it's hard to hear, and because I've had to go through it myself. But I know that you're the type of person that wants to grow and can come out the other end. And I think that's so important. And so I think if people at home can find that one person that can actually be honest with them, and because if you truly want to improve, you need to hear the truth.
Oh my gosh, I all the time, like after I do a talk or a speech or maybe even a video, I always turn to Sam and I'm like, tell me, like, was that good or was that just terrible? Like, please just tell me the truth, because I never want to be in a position where everyone's like, oh my God, Cassey, you're so beautiful. It's so good. Like, oh my gosh, then I'm going to be all delusional and think I'm doing amazing when really I'm not. And so one of the first things I always ask after a talk is like, how did I do? Give me a grade from like A to F. Like, give it to me right now. Like, I just need to know because I just want to be better. Like, that's all. Yeah.
Which I think that's so cool. Like, you need someone, like, even if it was a work colleague, I think I would do the same thing, right? Like, we work with our partners, so it's slightly different. And also we've established that you can be honest with me because I know you love me. And I think that's really important, finding someone that wants good things for you. So find someone around you that wants good things for you, that then can be honest. But you've got to know you're asking for their honesty. And so if they say something that you don't like,
be prepared.
Yeah,
and be open. I think when you're open, then it's going to hurt less. Yeah.
It's going to hurt less. I actually would have thought it'd hurt more.
Because
you're leaving yourself vulnerable, but I don't think that's a bad thing.
No, in my opinion, if you open it up and you're ready to be just criticized, then it's going to hurt less. But if I'm all defensive and I'm like, I think that was amazing. What did you think? And they're like, well, actually, then it hurts more because then it's like a blow that I didn't expect. So that in that sense, that's
actually really interesting.
Yeah. But why do you think it would hurt more if you're open? Because you're vulnerable.
Because you're allowing yourself to be vulnerable. But I actually think, like, I totally understand what you're saying. It's if you think you've done an amazing job, and we've all had this where we're like, I nailed that, and other people are like, no, that wasn't good. And you're like, what do you mean? Like, no, like you didn't see this, you must have missed this. I know what you mean. But I think progress can only really be done when you're being open to that criticism.
Yeah. So guys, everyone listening, be open in any situation, whether it's love relationships, work relationships. I think having an open mind is the biggest solution to all of our problems, really. Because I think some of the biggest problems are just miscommunication.
Oh, yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
We just need to talk about it. And I'm not even gonna get to this, but I think a lot of like family drama has a lot to do with miscommunication too. But that's gonna be a just whole nother topic.
In fact, we'll do another episode where we're just talking about family issues.
Yeah.
Got a lot of those.
We got a lot of those. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you really enjoyed this episode. And as usual, don't forget
to be Sheroic.